In the last episode of this series, I asked where the front of your ankle should be in relation to your knee when you're sitting. Forward of the knee, directly under the knee, or behind the knee. The common answer you will find to this question is that the ankle should be directly under the knee, so that the leg is at a 90-degree angle. This is not correct, and as we continue today, you will see that much of the common advice about sitting with good posture is flat out wrong. The justification for having the legs at 90 degrees while sitting is usually just some vague sentiment about it being balanced or neutral. But this is a misunderstanding of what the leg should be doing and should be prepared to do while you sit. The full explanation of this requires us to understand the more complex gesture of actually sitting down into a chair and also of sitting up out of one. For now, it's enough to understand that we need due tension in the lower leg, and what should be immediately clear with even a little experimentation is that your lower leg will have more tension in it when the front of your ankle is back behind the knee. You will find that many people habitually move their feet forward shortly after sitting down into a chair. For some, it is the habitual final movement of sitting, because when they lean their back against the back of the chair, that creates a force that will cause them to slide forward on the chair. That's why when you sit in a slump, every 10 or 15 minutes you'll notice you've sunken down by sliding forward, and you'll have to reset yourself. Moving the feet forward is a subconscious strategy that helps keep you back in the chair, as do other common habitual sitting postures like crossing one leg. However, the end result of sitting like this is always slumping. Most will round their back and drop their rib cage forward and down. Others will fight this rounding by slumping forward with the lower sternum and lower ribs. Either way, you're bending and shortening the torso and losing the tautness of your thoracolumbar fascia. The irrationality of all this becomes clear when you understand the most significant error that people make when sitting. People sit way too far back on the chair. You don't need the back of a chair to support you while sitting. You should be capable of supporting yourself. But when you're so far back on the chair, you will need some extra help because you're in a precarious position. See, when you sit very far back on the chair, you are essentially sitting on the backs of your legs. There is no reason to do this. People already have severe problems at the backs of their legs. You may recall me mentioning the lack of abduction at the back of the legs that is common to most people in the modern world. You don't want to sit on the backs of your legs and further decay and disorient those muscles. But when you're pushed back in your seat, you have no other option. Eventually, you get used to sitting on the backs of your legs, and it feels perfectly normal to have those muscles disengaged. The solution to this problem is to sit on the very front of the chair. Then, only your sit bones will be on the chair. The sit bones are the bottom of your pelvis and the bottom of your torso. And unsurprisingly, the sit bones are what you want to sit on. The legs can then angle down to the knee and back to the ankle. The backs of your legs won't be touching the chair at all. The error of sitting far back in your chair becomes obvious when you try to stand up. In order to stand up from sitting, you need to bring weight forward. That is just the basic physics of how standing up occurs. When you're far back in your chair, you have to get the weight of your torso very far forward to get it forward of your feet. Since you need to get so far forward, you will pull your lower sternum and lower ribs forward, and also down, in order to bring the weight of your torso forward. This bends the torso as we are well familiar with, and in most cases, your head will go back, which is a major shortening of the neck. But this is your only feasible option when you're so far back in the chair. What happens though if you scoot up in the chair, so that you're sitting on your sit bones? What if you also bring your feet back? Then you only need to lean forward a small amount, without unduly lowering the sternum and ribs, and you will have enough weight forward of your feet. From there, you could simply rise, since you are over your feet. Many people, especially as they age, have trouble getting out of chairs. It's even common for people that are not so old to struggle with getting out of a chair. This is to be expected when you sit at the back of the chair because you are forced to heave yourself forward to get the leverage you need to stand. You will also frequently see people scoot forward in their chair and pull their feet back in order to stand, because we can tell, consciously or not, that this helps us get leverage. So the question becomes, why do we feel more comfortable when we are leaned back in the chair, not supporting ourselves? The simple answer is that your feeling sense likes whatever it's used to. If you're used to deadening the backs of your legs, you will get used to that feeling, and any other feeling will seem strange. I don't doubt that people think they're more comfortable leaned back, but in practice this leads to pain in most cases. To deal with this, chairs have become much softer, to the point that they no longer provide a firm support, and instead they try to help you cope with your unbalanced sitting posture. As you get used to coping like this, sitting upright without something to support your back becomes strange and uncomfortable. Before you know it, you can't support yourself in a chair for more than a moment. This is really already the case for most people. Sit them in a hard chair for a few minutes and they will squirm. They will alternate between slumping and straining. They will twist their legs, lean and stretch. So much for the comfortable feeling this relaxed sitting posture was supposed to provide. Of course, sitting in the correct way will feel strange at first. Why is all this weight going through my sit bones into the chair, you might wonder? Why is there tension in my legs as if I'm ready to stand up or something? The new is always odd at first, but I encourage you to return to what we looked at last episode, creating friction on the floor with the feet. Sit on the front of the chair so that only your sit bones are touching the chair. Bring the feet back so that the front of the ankles are behind the knees. Position the feet as advised, parallel at the outsides. Then pull the interior of the heel towards the head of the first metatarsal. Lift the rib cage up away from the sit bones. While we have a chair out, we can look at something a little different. If you stand in front of the chair ready to sit down, you will likely find that your knees are not touching the chair. It's nice to video record this with a webcam or camera so you can actually see with your own two eyes. Make sure you are not pulling your feet under the chair to cheat. The reason your knees likely do not touch the chair is of course because of the general postural problems that we've outlined concerning the drooping forward of the pelvis and mid-torso and the forward lean of the leg. We would like to bring the back of the knee to the chair. However, the directions to accomplish this will not be to pull the knee back towards the chair. That is in fact a bad idea. Can you figure out why? I'll give you a hint if you want one. It has to do with what we've looked at with people shifting their weight off the inside of their feet and onto the outside of their feet. What does that do to the knee? Give it some thought, and then join me next episode, and we'll start to look at the knees.